Let's head back to the war room. Kingy, what have you got for us?
Well, we'll pick up where we left off. We left it with the Sydney Swans winning that tough ball in tight, Vossi. And have a look at the virtual plotting of what Fremantle did so well first half to second half. And we thought in the first half they were able to win that ball back, particularly down back. When you see all the possessions there in the back half of the ground, they actually won it back in that back half 29 times and played the game on counter-attack. Were able to score 3 of their 5 goals in the first half from deep, but it wasn't sustainable. You're not going to win high-level games at the pointy end on counter-attack when you're given the opposition you're up against.
You're right, Kingy, because you have to carry it full length. Not only do you have to be perfect with every single play, it actually wears you out because you're in constant defensive position all the time. You're constantly under pressure, you get under fatigue, and you just can't sustain it. That's required, and you certainly can't impact the scoreboard. So they had to ride it. To their credit, at half-time, they were able to correct a few things and got a little bit more go forward from the clearances.
And it was Ibbotson who had 8 in that first half of his 13 intercept possessions. Here's the second half now, and you can just see the general difference in the areas that they were different. There was 23 in the second half, but look where they are. They're a little bit deeper down back. They're a little bit scattered all over the field. I mean, that's going to happen in a high-pressure game. But they only got 1 goal of their 5 second-half goals. So they used the ball a lot smarter, they ran more effectively, and they were able to get it into the right playmakers' hands. And we'll touch on the coaching strategy of John Longmire to move Buddy Franklin up to the wing and up into the middle of the ground to get some overlap going. Jetta really lit up and come into the game. And they didn't give the ball back to Ibbotson. Goods got dangerous in that second half. He hadn't been a factor in the first.
Yeah, and he was started to get involved as their forwards did, and Fremantle were able to turn the ball over just a little bit higher up the field, as you can see on the play there. But still, when they went forward, they just didn't have enough players who were able to impact it. I know we talked about it before, but the key players of Ballantyne, Walters and Main, they only kick 1 goal, and you go up the other end and Good starts to get involved. Tippett didn't necessarily have a great day, he only kicked his 1. Franklin started to come on fire there through the second half, and we talked about his change of positioning. So just Fremantle weren't able to get the greater return, and they only just became good in a few areas as opposed to being good in a lot of areas.
The third quarter was critical for me, and it always is the third quarter. We talk about the premiership quarter in big games, and Sydney really came to play, and I thought their inside 50 entries were, well, they weren't plentiful. They only had the 9 kicks go inside forward 50, so 10 inside 50s for the quarter, but a lot of them were repeats. 5 of them were hacked out and then straight back in, and that's Sydney's mode. If they can play on repeat inside 50s, that's where they score. They scored their 2 goals, 1 on those repeat inside 50s and 1 from a forward 50 stoppage. So it becomes a territory game, and they build the pressure, and these stars put defensive pressure on, and that was the gap in the game for me, because Fremantle at the other end went in 14 times. They actually had the first 8 inside 50s of the quarter. They only kicked the 1 goal, and that was the gap in the game.
Yeah, the return, and sometimes it's only just the little bits and pieces, whether it's got to do with the free kick count. It was a very tight tussle, and they were able to, correct a lot of things, Fremantle, across the whole day, but they were outplayed from a better team. I mean, let's face it, Sydney just had all the answers. They were able to score when they needed to, and they just had the big plays at the big moments, and they had the very good players on the day.
Let's have a look at Fremantle's inside forward 50s, and you can just see the gap in the game here. That they really lack that extra target. We know they've gone out and recruited this year. Gumbleton hoping that he'd fulfil that role. Sylvia hoping he'd play a role as that marking sort of mid-range sort of forward style player, like a Chapman type, if you like. Hasn't worked out that way. They just didn't get any free ball at all in there. And credit to the Swans. I mean, their small defenders really put the clamps on the small forwards of the Fremantle Football Club.
And Taverner didn't necessarily have an impact, and he's been quite good for the last couple of weeks, but he just didn't seem to have any involvement. It just looked like a little bit of a step above where he's at. He'll be better for that experience. He'll go back over to Patterson Stadium and probably be better for that run. But he's pretty important to him because he's that other tall. He just gives them that flexibility that they need and doesn't put so much pressure on the other players.
Well, the move of the day from John Longmire, and it's an easy magnet to move, the Lance Franklin magnet from deep full forward where they were getting double teamed high up onto the wing and letting him roam around. You can just see here, I just want to highlight 2 things, Vossi. I want to highlight this matchup down here, bottom of screen. That's Jetta versus Pearce, and we're about to show you why Pearce was substituted out of the game. But there's Buddy Franklin, high up, winning a genuine one-on-one. We talk about those in finals football being so critical. You can see Jetta put the burners on through the middle of the ground there. He's got some body checking from Pearce, but he doesn't stay with it. He puts on 1 effort and then he gives up. And we've seen over the course of the weekend already just how much damage these high half forwards or wingmen can do getting him behind. He put him to the sword there, and that 1, 2, 3 metre gap there is game over. And that's why, if you win 3 contests in a row, the rolling spotlight of finals football allows you to score.
Yeah, you can talk about that spare. So if there is a spare there and he's standing around Franklin, he's up on centre wing. So if he's able to take that grab and then get bypassed just by that great kick by Franklin, I mean, let's face it, that kick was an absolute beauty, which just connects the midfield, and then you get into backspace, and all of a sudden the midfielders, they have to defend in their forward 50, which we know traditionally midfielders aren't that exceptional at.
No, you didn't like it. He
No
had
one does.
4 disposals in the third quarter, Franklin, all high up the ground for 3 score involvements. He finishes with 10 score involvements for the day. He's the number 1 player. I just want to highlight Ben McGlynn. I think he's a player that gets missed when you're looking through your scouting notes, and just show you his work rate. We pause it there. He's already given 1 lead here to try and be a short option for Teddy Richards, I think, who's about to kick that ball. Just watch what he does here. He stays involved. He commits to be a front and square player. Doesn't quite fall his way. You see him breaking through the middle of the screen there, watching the play, assessing whether Sydney are likely to win the ball. And now he goes. This is a 100-metre run. This is why you get on the end of these sorts of plays. And really, look at the score at that stage. It's 10 minutes into the game, and he's putting the challenge fairly and squarely to the half-back flankers or the midfielders of the Fremantle side, who weren't really up to it. They weren't really engaging in the fight at that stage.
If you start to look at inevitability, it's a little bit like the Sydney and Hawks that will start to eventuate. And you talk about the runners of the Hawks, when you say Birchall, Hill, Smith, these players are just able to get into open space. Well, McGlynn is one of those for Sydney. So for everything that Hawthorn is, being able to get Jetta into that back space, getting McGlynn who can break the lines, they're the Hawks' answer.
And a big quarter from Mike Pike at the end, Sandy, which we all enjoyed.
Indeed, it was outstanding. Highlighted by his running goal in the end. But 24 points if you have just joined us with the margin in favour of Sydney. Still lots more to come. We'll hear from the winning